What's up, guys? Hotshotfrontier back at it again with another video. And in this video, guys, we're going to do an analysis of the team YCS in Sao Paulo 2023. So, of course, I have here with me
Yugiwoah. What's going on, man?
And Yugiwoah, go ahead and introduce yourself to the people that may not know you. You know, your channel, Instagram, everything, bro. Just go ahead.
Oh, I appreciate it, Hotshot. Thank you so much for having me here. So obviously, yeah, my name is Yugiwoah. I just started up a YouTube page about a month ago. It's been doing really well. We focus a lot on jankier builds. We picked up a lot of steam with my Mekong Goo build, which Hotshot was one of the first to call it a rogue level deck way back when. So I think that kind of started the train rolling pretty early. On my Instagram page, you can look me up as well, yugi.woah. We do a lot of live openings, a lot of content, just a lot of fun and interactive and engaging stuff for Yu-Gi-Oh fans that are casual and serious alike. So yeah, subscribe to the YouTube channel. We're doing a whole bunch of stuff, including deck profiles, combos, and even some product openings now. So it's all good. It's all good.
That's awesome. That's absolutely awesome. I mean, the Mekong Goo is just taking over. Like, I've seen it every time you post a video. My knowledge is like going like up. Like the next time I see a Mekong Goo player,
yeah,
it's over because I already know what they're going to be doing.
That's right. You know what? We're giving away the sauce, but it tastes good when you're trying it, right? So it's all good.
Right. Exactly. exactly. So, all right. I mean, let's get right into it. You know, this was a very interesting YCS, right? The deck performance breakdown we have right here. It was top 16. We have Castira 29.2%. I mean, I think that's probably pretty obvious, right? Yeah. Some would say, wow, I can't believe that's not higher. But really interesting that we have Unchained at 18.8%.
Yeah. That's
pretty crazy. I think a lot of people were, you know, testing in secret and they were ready. They definitely were ready.
100%. Yeah.
Right, exactly. So, and then we have Purely, we have Chimera, we have Dragon Link, Labyrinth, Marine Cess, Banquet Soul, and then Other, which I guess we really didn't get a chance to see other decks. You know, probably like jankier decks that didn't really make it, unfortunately. But shout out to them for getting to the top 16. So that's really great. And I wonder for Chimera, I guess it's really just branded Chimera. There's no pure Chimera, right?
Yeah, not at this point. I mean, Chimera builds and illusionist builds overall are going to get more support as we go along here. We're going to see more support in Age of Overlord for the illusionist stuff, which is really cool. But right now, branded Chimera seems to be the build to go to. And honestly, I can't blame them. There's one card combos everywhere with this deck. You can start with your branded fusion, obviously. You can go into your cornfield Codal. You know, there's just a lot of ways to get this deck going. But what I think really elevates the deck itself is its real strong use of non-engine. I mean, there's just so much space for disruptive cards, for tech options. That's what's really elevating this deck, because branded has often been known as like an all-gas deck that really can't play defensive all that well. And, you know, as a part of that, you have branded Chimera seriously teching in not only just a lot of disruptive cards and defensive cards, but things like Crossout that can just cover a whole range of stuff. So it can play offense, it can play defense. I'm actually surprised it's not a tad bit higher here, but 8.3% in a cash format is pretty good.
Right. So, I mean, can't complain with that. But let's go straight down and let's see the, again, the breakdown of the decks. So we have 14 for Castira, we have 9 Unchained, 5 Purely, we have Chimera, branded 4, we have 2 Bestial, 2 Lab, we have 2 Marine Cess, 2 Banquet Soul. One was pure and one was super heavy Samurai. That was actually pretty interesting to see. We have 1 for Noble. We have Math Mech, of course, which is interesting too. We have Melfi Sprite, 1 Rescue Ace, 1 Rika Sun Avalon, 1 Runic for Hire Sprite. Interesting. We have Scareclaw Vanadium, and we have Telements, which is pretty interesting to see in top 16 after, you know, everything, right?
Absolutely. The ban list, yeah.
The ban list.
Yeah.
We don't talk about it. We don't talk about it, right? No. But all right, let's get into our first deck here. We have from Castira, top 8 for the team YCS by Jorge. And yeah, I mean, it looks really nice. Main deck in the Harpy's Feather Duster, of course. And, you know, people are really on the Book of Moons, Book of Eclipses, you know, the Karma, Daruma canon, right? Just that's it for the format. Like, everyone's just like, no Castira, and it's pretty good against other decks, right? So
yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think the books are such an impactful tech option in this format, simply because we're not dealing, unless we're in like really, really big combo decks, we're not dealing with huge boards that, put up, 5 bodies or whatever. It's usually 1 or 2 really impactful monsters that if you can book 1 or book 2, that usually can kind of stop their plays and stop their disruption on your turn. So I really think that books seem to be the way to go. Eclipses are an interesting option. I think Book of Moon definitely has more utility. The only thing is that it targets. So in some cases, you can try to skirt around that by having anti-targeting mechanics in play. But for the most part, though, I think it's a really good tech option. And of course, shout out to those 3 Pot of Prosperities, because they're working overtime in this deck.
yeah, exactly.
That's similar to Unchained too, and we'll get to that. But this is a deck, it's a glass cannon, obviously. We know that if it can go off, it goes off hard. But if it can't really get that engine chugging along, then it really kind of struggles to make something really impactful. And they might have to just go a Rise Heart Pass, which can be enough sometimes. But you know what? At the end of the day, it's just one monster, and a book can usually handle it.
Right, exactly. So, and I know that some cash players are actually moving away from the one Rise Heart Pass, right? Because it's just so easy to get rid of that. They want multiple monsters just to at least have something else in case that happens.
Yeah.
But all right, so that sounds pretty good. Let's go straight down into the next one, and of course we have the first place for the Pack's teammate Reuben, and he is playing Bestial Dragonlink, which is really nice. I think that, just Dragonlink itself is always amazing to me. And the fact that they finally added the Bestial stuff, I thought I would see a lot more like tops and first places, but it took a while for this deck to finally see the light of, of getting like that top spot, in the meta, which is it deserves it. 100% deserves it. But
yeah, to me anyway, it's one of the most adaptable decks of the format. It's something that has just so many lines and options that it can go through. I think the reason why maybe it's been a little bit stifled getting to those top tier placements in tournaments is because it does take a lot of mental sort of capacity to pilot this. And I know obviously when we're talking about the pro level circuit and talking about pro players, that shouldn't be much of an issue, but the reality is that misplays do happen in tournament environments, change the complexion of the way you play. If you're being recorded, I spoke to a couple of pro players before, and they've said that when the cameras are on, that can also affect your level of play. And this is a deck that you just can't sleep with, right? It's not a deck you can sleepwalk through at all. And, one misplay or one wrong sort of link off or the timing of some of your plays can also impact just how your lines develop and go through things. So I definitely think that this is a deck worthy of topping. But it's certainly one that you need to be on your game the whole time, and maybe that's what's also preventing it as well from going far.
Right, exactly. And I mean, I can't even imagine like going into game 3 and you have just not even that much time to really go ahead and make your board. And that combo decks nowadays take a while. If you're a really good player, you can slim it down, but when the time's going down, it's one of those high level tournaments like you stated, it gets to you. That could be rough.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Crazy.
But I also like that they're teching in these Book of Eclipses, obviously. I mean, it doesn't really do much for them. You can sometimes disrupt a Dragon Link deck depending on what they put on in their main monster zone and then try to stop that before they link off. But really, they can play the Eclipses because they're on their big Link boys, right? So at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect them that much. So this is a deck that can play through some of those big tech options. And we see Unchained doing the same kind of thing.
Very nice. And then his side deck, really quick, I just wanted to point out that he's running the Encore, right? I think a lot of people are on that. And this card has been bought out many, many of times just because it's like the only printing, and it's just so good, It's really just anti-Zeus, so...
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, this is, I think it's a quick play as well, if I'm not mistaken, right?
Yes, yes it is.
Yeah. That just elevates that card so much. Quick plays, of course, do it on your turn, do it on your opponent's turn, do it in draw phase. It doesn't really matter. It's live all the time. So yeah, you can see why a lot of guys are kind of leaning towards that as a side deck option at the very least.
Right, exactly. So, all right, so pretty good. Let's go down below. Let's see, top 8. We have Sergio with his lab deck. Now, I don't see many people playing it, but I actually kind of like Trap Trick Lab. Like, it's just such a, because Labyrinth is already good. So adding Trap Tricks to it, it's like...
Yeah, fair. Yeah,
but,
I haven't seen many people do that either. And I wonder, if there's a conflict there, trap tricks like to, they like to overlay, they like to make, things out of multiple monsters, and I'd like to kind of hold one and sit back and let the traps do the work. But, I think in this build, what we're seeing that I think is really interesting is that Unchained engine coming through, right? Unchained being Fiend monsters. You can take a look at their extra deck there. I mean, there's just so much room in the extra deck. They can, allow a lot of slots to be dedicated to their Unchained stuff, which is really cool. And just getting that Fiend recursion from the graveyard, man, it's really good. And it really helps kind of elevate the deck just in terms of that stickiness, that recursion that I think we see a lot of with good decks anyway.
Right, exactly. And, it's always funny to me that, when Konami prints a card for a specific archetype and other just decks use it to, abuse it, it's crazy. Like Predator Plant, Bird Anaconda, like,
yeah.
It was for Predator Plants, right? Like
100%. Like, I mean, that's the funny thing, right? It's if it's generic, somebody's going to find a way to tack it in. And because it just says Fiend, that's all you got to really know. You know what I mean? So, and popping your own cards in this deck can be also quite beneficial. And I'm talking about the lab deck. So, yeah, I mean, I think it just gives people a little bit more sort of interaction points to think about. And that's what makes it so kind of sticky to work through.
Right. And just one more point before we move on. I wanted to ask you, do you feel like we're finally out of a Droll and Lockbird format, or we're still sticking into a Droll and Lockbird format?
For my Makongu deck's sake, I hope we are out of the Droll format. So let's be positive YouTubers here, or influential ones, and just keep pressing that we're out of a Droll format. But I think at the end of the day, Droll is a card that was definitely hyped up at the beginning of this format simply because we thought a lot of combo decks would be entering the format. Revolution Synchron comes to mind. The Mannadium stuff in heavy synchro combo decks came to mind as well when we talked about this format. I think it's still a consideration, but what I'm hoping is we change that from the main deck to the side deck. I think people are still going to have an eye on Droll, and it's not going to be something that is completely out of the format altogether. If we saw an Infernoble top 4, I think we'd see more Droll in the main deck list. Only because that's a real true combo deck that has a lot of rogue and meta sort of potential. And if we saw a lot more representation from that particular deck, even though they do run Connector, which it can snipe out a Droll, that would be a lot more encouraging to see more Drolls in the main deck. But I think for now, we're kind of leaning towards putting it in the side and maybe putting some Moons and some Book of Eclipses in the main.
Right. Okay. So you hear that, everyone? Let's slowly get out of a Droll format, okay?
Please help me and help the goo. Help the goo.
I'll start, and then Yugiwoah will start after. We'll continue it, okay? Everyone just take it out.
I got it.
All right, here we go. Going into PAX first place Unchained list.
Unreal.
Wow. I mean, the fact that first Unchained, right? A lot of people were like, ha ha ha, I don't know. But I mean, he played it, Jesse Cotton played it absolutely crazy. I mean, what do you think of just Unchained in general right now?
I mean, Unchained, if it's not tier 1 now, when will it be? You know what I mean? It definitely, rates as a tier 1 deck. It's got so much recursion. It's got so much ability to play through the barriers that other meta decks struggle with. I'm talking about Cash, for example. Whatever Cash seems to have an issue with, Unchained seems to play through just fine. I'm looking at those book cards in particular. I think what really elevated this deck in particular is that it now has a true 1-card combo, and that's true, guys. I mean, to me, if you can get a deck that has a 1-card combo engine built in, you're already off to the races, and you can have 4 things committed to your hand for disruption or for defense. But if you got that 1 card that you can kind of, bait things out and then play with, it elevates the standing of this deck big time. So I think that's a huge thing. Don't sleep on the fact that they're also playing 3 thrusts in this though too, right? And that definitely adds a lot more consistency. And like I said about the Cash build earlier, you're playing 3 pots just to dig a little bit deeper. And if you want to go for that extra 1-card combo play or the 2-card combo play, you can dig for those as well. So I think what makes this deck so good is you've got the 1-card combo play, but then you also have a lot of combination of 2-card combos that can just go off. And of course, playing on your opponent's turn with, popping their own stuff.
Our turn.
Unreal. What do you think?
I mean, I love the Unchained deck in general. I'm glad it finally had like the it got the link to support, you know.
Yep.
I mean, because a lot of people, they just really did not like playing more copies of this card than they wanted to. They really
Yep.
didn't want to play 0 copies. So, you know, a lot of people, I believe in the Unchained community too, were saying like we're judging, you know, even playing the 1 copy. But it's nice how, you know, when Pack explains, you know, how this helps later in the game, you know, helps you win games too. So it was just really nice. And I want to talk about, of course, the Vice King, the DDD Vice King. The fact that you just go ahead and activate the contract, you scale the Vice King, special summon it, go straight into, of course, your DDD XYZ, and then just attack over the Castira Fenrir. And if you want, you can go straight into Zeus, and then there you go.
Unreal. Yeah, unreal tech. Like, way to like know
Yeah.
your meta and then just have like the perfect out to it, right?
Exactly.
You know, it kind of reminds me of older formats where it was like, I just need that one synchro summon to beat over like the biggest problem card in the meta right now. You know what I mean?
Right,
like, as long
right.
as I can get there. Yeah, exactly. You know, like Goyo comes to mind, pre-errata, you know, for stuff like that. But let's also look at the fact that they're also, you know, doing the Griffin, Nightmare Griffin tech in there too, right? Muckracker into Griffin and floodgating the opponent that way. So the way this deck operates, there's just so many ways that it can get you. It can FTK you, it can OTK you, it can beat over the big problems, it can book the big issues as well. I mean, it can play any way you want to play, and as far as I'm concerned, that's a really big plus.
Absolutely. I mean, it just has such a powerful search card as well. I think this card's like about $30 plus right now. Like, it's crazy. I don't know where we get reprints for that. But moving on to the side deck, though, I mean, Pack picked some really interesting choices to have for his side. I mean, of course, you know, we have the triple tactic talents. We have the change of heart, which I haven't really seen too much of change of heart, because I mean, I guess he kind of just wanted extra copies of it just in case, which, I mean, it's just so amazing. I have to go back to triple tactic thrust, the fact that you play 3 of this, you're playing 6 of something, you're playing 5 of it, 4 of it. It's crazy. It's absolutely crazy.
Massive consistency. You know, you're always trying something. It's crazy.
It's crazy. I mean, if you could afford it, or you could somehow just like trade cards to it, like, it's worth to have, you know, in any deck. But I mean, of course, we're playing the evenly matched, playing the Herald, we're playing the Darama Cannon, of course. We're playing the anti-spell fragrance, which is, you know, that's really nice. Who's gonna draw that one up, right?
Always.
Right. And then we have the Traxxir, which is a really interesting tech that Pack added in. And then we do have the Dimensional Barrier, the 1 copy, which I guess, I mean, it makes sense if he's playing the Thrust. He's playing 4 copies technically, so not bad, right?
Yeah, exactly. I think the Trax is really interesting to me. You know, it's funny, when I saw that card get released, I'm like, someone's going to use this at some point. You know, don't sleep on the fact that it's a common. Something's going to happen here. And I think whenever people see purple cards, and I'm not talking about Fusion, I'm talking about Trax, whenever people see purple cards, they're thinking it's slow and it's useless and you just got to draw it to make it work, right? But I think Thrust just adds so much more value now to that. You know, it makes those cards actually faster than what they should be. You just got to spend $300 on a playset to make it work. So
right, exactly. I mean, if it's worth it, it's worth it, right? At the end of the day.
Right.
So, all right, but I mean, congratulations to Pack. Of course, going to his last teammate, Camel, and wow, he's playing purely. I mean, do you see anything different in terms of the deck list that he brought?
Well, I mean, Purley is something that you need to dedicate a ton of room to your engine, just so that way you can mill the right cards or excavate the right cards, right? So you're seeing a lot of what you need to see. I think what's really interesting is it just shows you the power of Cash Fenrir pre-ban list. I don't know if it's going to get hit. People speculate that it will.
Yeah.
I don't know where I sit on it. I think at 2 could be healthy. It's a card that's so free, right? So as you can see, this is a card that it at the very least baits an interaction, baits a negate, and already then you can get your excavations going and you can start you know, playing the game that you want to play, which is really good. And notice again, those Pots of Prosperities always coming in clutch. That's modern Yu-Gi-Oh right now, right?
Yeah, it is.
You know, it's a 41 card deck, but now you've got potentially 6 of every card that you want. So yeah, I just think it's super impactful, especially, you know, going first here. You want to see your main starters, and obviously Pot is going to get you there. And of course, the Eclipses are in there too. So, I mean, this is a well-balanced deck. I don't know if it's something there's anything obvious standing out to me. You might have something different about it. I think he has just the right amount of non-engine to engine ratio in this. But what do you think?
I mean, again, it looks like you said, a pretty standard Purley deck. I mean, I'm pretty sure even Zeus at 2 is standard in the deck.
Yeah.
I wonder about Azalea. Actually, I'm not too sure about that. If that's
Yeah.
just more of a way to get monsters off the field and just have a some high attack monster on the field just to go for game. But I mean, the side deck is pretty nice. Crossouts in the side deck, I usually don't even see crossout in the side deck. Might be interesting tech to have in the side, usually in the main. But of course, we have the XYZ encores in there as well. And Judgment is nice. I mean, I haven't seen Judgment in a while. It's been a while. Like,
Yeah.
I don't know. Like, when's the last time I've seen it? Maybe the last time I played like Elledge a few years back. Like, it's been a while, right?
Yeah, man. The funny thing about Judgment is, like, I think a lot of people veered away from it just because time rules were a pain to work with, and you just don't want to put yourself in a comparable position where, you're reducing life points or whatever, and then all of a sudden now your opponent, knowing what the clock is all about, is not slow playing you, but just happens to be extending a little too much. You know what I mean?
Right.
And so I think, unfortunately, again, we talk about modern Yu-Gi-Oh! And the kind of state that it's in. Time plays a big factor, especially in a best of 3, and you got to be really careful when you're bringing in those judgments or those cards that can take away your own life points, because at the end of the day, the opponent's going to try and use that to their advantage. And I'm not saying that it's intentional or not, but what I am saying is that it's indicative of the game and the format that we're in, that, yeah, you're going to extend combos where you might want to try and push that time limit just a little bit more.
Absolutely. I mean, hey, if you go game 3 and you use Judgment, you're a madman. But hey, if you win, right?
100%. That's what I'm saying. So I think that's why a lot of people backed off the card. But if you're a good player and you're confident with where you're at and what game you're in, then yeah, why not play it? It's a huge way to just stop a deck cold. So.
Okay, right, exactly. And then one thing before I move on that I did notice for the D barrier, maybe he's running the 1 D barrier because he's running the crossout, right?
Yeah.
So maybe add 4 in and then just call it if they actually activate it. Probably that, right? Because other than that, why are you just running the 1 copy? At least run 2 or add 3. You probably should have room too.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's part of it. I think also he's obviously playing the 3 encore, but don't be mistaken. I think the encore is also a crossout target too. So
that is true.
I think that's a big part of it as well. It's like you're building a deck for competition. You got to think, can 1 card fulfill multiple roles for me? If it doesn't do that, then it's just a garnet and I'm not going to be playing it. So I think, these guys have built their decks in a really good way where 1 card can serve multiple purposes. And you're seeing that with these side deck options.
Absolutely. So going on, we have we have Chimera branded. So top 8, of course, we have Almeida. Couldn't pronounce the first name. I apologize. But yes, he's playing 40 cards. The deck, he's playing Ghost Mourner, Moonlit Show. Really nice. I love to see like just new hand traps, that we haven't seen in a while being used. I don't remember the last time I've seen like Ghost Bell. But okay, Ash Blossom, 2 Drolls. We have the Effect Veiler. Going on, we have the Book of Moons. No Eclipses. Probably just didn't have room, to be honest. A lot of stuff you're playing branded Chimera. I know you're running just so much in your deck is kind of like, But moving on, we have the side deck is nice. Kaiju's, okay, pretty nice. You're playing the extra copies that you just couldn't fit into the main. The Cosmic Cyclones are really good, against like stuff like Runic and stuff like that. Stuff that you just need to get off the field. Harpy's Feather, of course. Okay, let's see. Yep. So side deck looks really nice. I do like the extra deck. I mean, of course, I don't think any deck lists run 3 Chimeras. I think 2 is pretty standard.
Yeah.
But other than that, yeah, I mean, this looks like a really decent list. Pretty standard, right?
Yeah, it looks good to me. I mean, the Kaiju's obviously, they're going with the Dark Kaiju because it's a great Super Poly target. Once you give it to them, you can set your Super Poly and then, just keep extending on their turn, which is really nice. So you can get rid of it kind of quickly. So, you out a problem card and then you move forward with it, which is really good. 2 Chimera, that's the standard. Of course, they've got the crossouts, and then you can see in the side deck that they're also trying to, look out for their crossout targets. I think D-Berry being one of them, obviously. Obviously, calling XZs is really good against Pearly, but they don't want to get called Fusion, right? So I think that's part of it. And then you see the Shifter and you see the Droll there as well, and the Veil perhaps too, all as your targets for that too. So, you know what I mean? Like when you play a branded build, you have to just kind of accept the fact that you don't have a lot of non-engine to work with. But like I said, what I like about the Chimera build in particular is there's a lot more non-engine in this build than I've seen in a lot of branded builds, right? And to be this defensive and have this many options is really, really good. The triple tactics is talents as well. Really nice side because everyone's on hand traps right now. You know, drawing 2, taking a monster, using it as fusion material for yourself. I mean, there's a lot of potential extension there. And you know what's going to happen because there are just hand traps aplenty. And when people see branded fusion, I don't know if you knew this, but if you look really closely at the text, it says your opponent must ash this card. So, you know, as soon as that happens, you're like, cool, now I'm free to play. You know what I mean? I get to use my proper greed now, which is really good. So, yeah, I mean, I think watch for branded Chimera. If not branded Chimera, just Chimera in general, because they just seem to have a lot of one-card potential. And again, that's always a clear indication of a deck worthy of kind of watching.
Right, exactly. And I guess, you know, as we continue down, we see the trend of you're running the crossouts either in the side or the main, and then you're running the one, you know, copies of certain cards like G-Shifter. You know, you really wouldn't see that in a deck like this, but of course, it's, you know, good to get that out instead of having to deal with that later, right? So, not bad. And then, all right, now we're going on to Rescue Ace from Hector, again, top 16. And I mean, Rescue Ace, honestly, to me, is like that secret contender that people, they really did make fun of Rescue Ace when it came. Like, it finally came to TCG. It was like, what, Hydron was like $12, and it was just like, no, like, it's not going to do anything. Like, get rid of this. Come on, it's a meme. And then what happens? Like, what happened, right? The Ibley is nice in the deck. I like Prosperities, you know, I don't want it to get banned, but at the same time, it would be curious to see what would happen if this went to 1. Because I don't think they'll ban it. I think they would put it to 1, and then every deck is probably just going to take it out, you know, and see kind of like, what are they going to replace it with? You know, are they going to put more hand traps in? Are they going to find a different way to draw or add cards to hand? It's going to be very curious to see how that develops. But going on to the extra deck looks really nice. Actually, he's not playing the, the name's escaping me. It's the Link 5 or Link 6. It's the Firewall Dragon. You know
yes.
I don't know if people are, I guess, going further from it now, but I mean, I used to be really good in terms of just having your end board set up, right? So I'm curious maybe if there's another way he has in this extra deck, but the puzzle's nice. The puzzle's actually really nice to have in here. A nice tech card, but yeah, I mean, it looks really nice. The side deck, again, is something that I see that he was trying to add a bunch of things. That's why he doesn't have 3 nib. He has the 2 droll, the red resonator, which is nice. I haven't seen this since Sprite. We have again the Solemn Judgments are nice, and then the D barrier. Of course, you gotta have D barrier until they ban it because take advantage. But what do you think about this deck?
Yeah, I mean, I think Rescue Ace is just one of those, like you said, those meme rogue decks that just kind of come out of nowhere. They get the right support at the right time, and all of a sudden people aren't prepared for it. And, you know, again, we like to see the crossouts in the main just for that hand trap protection. They're playing the 3 Ash, which, hey, happens to be a fire. And then, of course, you have your Droll and your Nib in the main, and then siding in the other 2 if need be, depending on the matchup. So, but again, they're crossout targets, and then depending on your matchup, they can be main staples in your deck. So I think that's a really good play. You also notice the small world tech in here, which is really cool. This is a deck a lot like Math Mech in some ways, where almost 1 card can get you to any card. And I think that just kind of, again, helps the consistency of this deck. And to your point on the pots, I mean, I wonder if it's dropped down to 1, does this, again, increase the price of thrusts? You know?
Yes. Because it's kind of one or the other, right? Because
that's it.
They're both abusable. And pot's been around so much longer than thrust. There's no way they're going to hit. Not for a long time. So at the end of the day, it's like, all right, which one are you going to hit? And then my whole thing too is also like, it's interesting to see what would happen if they hit the Pot of Prosperity. But at the same time, rogue decks are going to suffer so much because they've hit that Pot of Prosperity. You know, now you're losing so much more consistency that you had before, and rogue is going to be even like, it's going to be rogue. It's going to be further than how it was before.
Yeah, I agree. And controversially, this might go back to the Mystic Mine discussion. We don't have time for that. But when they banned Mystic Mine, yes, it was something that needed to happen. But in a format that was tier 0, I think it was kind of unnecessary, especially when a lot of rogue decks relied on Mystic Mine as just a great equalizer to get their footing. That's how I see the pots kind of coming into play as well. It's a great equalizer. Again, as a rogue builder myself with the goo deck, I mean, pots come in handy to just dig for that extension and dig for that card starter. So yeah, we'll see how that goes. But kudos to this build. I think Recipes is really good, and there's some flexibility here, and I can see that it's going to continue to adapt as it moves along.
Absolutely, like you said, I mean, just give it time and it'll definitely develop more. I think if we see that huge Castira hit, definitely a lot of decks will be getting that huge bump in the meta. But,
yeah.
Let's go down. Let's see. That should be the last one. That is the last one. So the final thing I want to ask you is going into, well, I guess let's say the current format we're in right now.
Yeah.
What do you think the best deck is to play? Now, of course, I know you want to say Makonku. I know, but let's say what about other than Makonku? What's second? What's second?
That's right. Yeah, Makonku best deck, right? Yeah. No, man. I mean, I'll tell you what, Hotshot. It's one of those things where I think it's a cop-out answer. We got to wait for the ban list. If it drops, that's going to determine what we can see here as really coming through. Right. But if I were to, be a betting man, I would say that, maybe controversially, Unchained is probably the best deck right now, only because I'm thinking about future production from it, okay? I mean, I'm thinking longevity. I know you said what's the best deck right now. Okay, sure, it's Cash, only because it has a Macrocosmo on legs. But if you want to invest in a deck that's, I think, going to survive the ban list, I think Unchained is a really good deck to invest in for that reason. And again, it's just like I said, it's such a sticky deck. It's got great recursion. You're popping cards, you're recurring cards, everything floats. So to me, it just seems a lot more adaptable, and you can pivot with it a lot more. And again, you can side in, but tech in a lot of different things like your Labyrinth cards. You can bring a lot of Fiend techs as well for that too. So that's what I'm saying. I'm saying Unchained just because I'm seeing the trajectory here. Yeah,
exactly. And I mean, I respect your decision. That's Unchained is a very good deck. I mean, you don't see any cards really getting hit from Unchained, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I respect that. So I would actually go with Labyrinth. Don't ban the epidemic virus, please. Let's see. I mean, they probably will, to be honest. But I mean, hey, some things just kind of get swept under the rug, and you're like, oh, we forgot about that, right?
Yeah.
I think even without it, it's such a great trap deck. I think it's one of the best trap decks we have out right now. I don't think you're going to see anyone playing like something like Ellich. That's just past its time, unfortunately. And again, I really like tech with Trap Tricks. Yeah. And the fact that they're running, like you said, they have so much room in the extra deck that they're running the Unchained cards in the extra deck. It's very interesting to see. So I think moving on, this deck definitely will see more play, especially if Castira goes down, which you probably will see. I think the people have spoken, and finally it's like time for Konami to just bring it down a little bit, just a little bit, give birth to one, right? It's still there, and we'll see what happens.
I agree. I think Arise Heart is probably going to get hit, and maybe we'll have another video for a conversation about that another time. Absolutely. I just think that you look at Lab. I think that's a really good pick. Look, if you can have a deck that can abuse any trap card ever, you should probably use that deck because it's just so free, right? I mean, Yu-Gi-Oh has 10,000 cards in its repertoire. If you have access to any of the generic cards that you can get, why not? So I can see where you're coming from with that. Absolutely.
Definitely. But guys, looks like that's all we have for you today. Wow, this is an amazing discussion. I had a lot more fun in this video than in my other videos. So I think we definitely have to go ahead and invite you back on the channel. Thank you so much, Yugiwoah, for joining our discussion. Any final words you want to say to the people?
Well, Hotshot, thanks again for having me, man. It's been an absolute pleasure. I'd love to come back if you have me. And, it's just always good talking anything meta-related or rogue-related. Love to pick your brain on it and love my brain pick. So I appreciate it all. Again, if you want more of my annoying voice, then you can follow me on YouTube, Yugiwoah. Just look it up, or look up Makongu. It's somewhere there. And if you want to see me on Instagram, it's yugi.woah. So that's where you can find me.
Perfect. So again, thank you so much for coming on the channel, talking some meta with us. But guys, if you like this video, make sure to give it a huge like comment down below. Should we bring Yugiwoah back on the channel? And what do you think of this breakdown? And guys, if you're not subscribed to the channel, what are you doing? Make sure you hit that subscribe button, turn on the notification bell so you're updated the moment I upload new videos. And also make sure to go ahead and subscribe to Yugiwoah on YouTube and follow him on Instagram and Threads. But guys, that's it from us. Hope you have a great rest of your day or night, and we'll catch you in the next video.